Okay. We will reconvene the October meeting of the District 99 Board of Education. We've been in closed session where the roll was taken and everybody's here. At this time, we'll rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving down our agenda, item 4 is approval of minutes from the September 17th business meeting and the September 17th closed meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes? Any comments, corrections?
No, everything seems fine.
If there are none, the chair would invite a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Member Pavicic moves.
Second.
Member Davenport moves. Seconds the motion to approve the minutes. Call that vote, please.
Terry Pavicic.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Nancy Kupko.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Julie Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye. That motion passes. The minutes are approved. Item 5 on our agenda is the first reception of visitors. I don't see many people here, so if anybody wishes to address the board, come to the microphone. You have 3 minutes. Ready? Going once? Mm-hmm. Okay, we can move on then to the recommendations and reports to the superintendent. Item 6. 6A is 2012 school report card. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. Each year, both the school district and each high school has to post a school report card. That report card includes a tremendous amount of information about the school and the district, including student performance and academic measures, demographics, budgets, etc. In our workshop meeting earlier this month, we reviewed our academic performance for the previous year, so we'll only review that very briefly this evening. And primarily, we're going to look at the school report card in the sense of not going through it line by line, but looking at some of the interesting features of it. This information will not be shared publicly, I believe, until the end of the month. Is that correct, Dr. Miner?
Yes.
And up until that time, it is embargoed. Whatever that means. So, Dr. Miner, we'll review this pretty quickly.
Very well.
And I'll let her begin.
Okay. As Dr. McDonald had noted, it is important that the board review this prior to the release, which will be at the end of the month. This reflects the data from our 2011-2012 school year.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. If this is embargoed, which means we can't share it, then...
That's what we're told in terms of releasing, that the state releases out to all media at that point. We've had access to it via the IWAS, the state program that we could get on, and that's why you have access to looking at it. But
No, I'm questioning why
It's a bit of a paradox.
It
we're going
is.
to televise it. I
right.
guess.
It's a bit of a paradox, Dr. Kupko. We are supposed to present it at a public meeting before
not
it's
until-
released, but we are not supposed to release it.
Right.
Or actually, I
Thank you
think
for clarifying that.
we could
Danielle.
release it if we wish, but we probably won't until the embargo date. Again, it's a paradox.
Exactly.
So it doesn't go on the website is basically what it's saying.
Okay, okay. Thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
I know. One of the 5 questions you get answered in heaven. Just going forward, though, not as far as our student demographic composition, and you have received copies of the district and school report cards. So just to note that the slight shift in and changes in some of our subgroup populations. So this then gives us pauses to the kinds of systems of support for those subgroups who may not be having as much success. As you look, here's another indicator that also provides some insights to how our low income rate has raised over 5% just in the last 2 years. Again, those are some areas that we want to make sure that we attend to with regard to helping our students who need those extra supports. This is an interesting slide because And I copied this directly from the school report card, but as you note, there was a change in the law last July. And I highlighted it last year to say that they were going to change the rate from 18 days to 9. I did call the state that in effect is true. You will note that our district rate has gone up 0.1%. The state rate has more than doubled because of this fact. And I think that this is a testament to the work that is being done in the buildings with teachers, administration, counselors, deans, to make sure that we are attending to keeping our students in school. So this is something that should be celebrated. Again, the state rate has doubled and beyond for the chronic truancy rate, but we're very happy with that very slight increase. Other student information, again, the state has a new calculation method for graduation. That's why this year you'll see that they have it broken down to 4-year and 5-year cohorts. You'll see this even more strikingly when the new school report card comes out next year for 2013. It'll have a totally new look than what you have. It's colorful, there's charts, there's all kinds of things to it. So you will note that the state is gearing up for these changes on the report card. Again, we're holding consistently as we have in past years, and we also tend to do particularly well in terms of the state comparison. You'll see the parent contact piece, there's a slight drop, but I think you'll see a huge change with all the investment of time and talent and efforts that are taking place at both buildings in terms of their parent outreach, specifically via plan. Academic performance, again, this is a recap, but it's comparative to the state. We have talked a lot about this. I don't want to belabor the point. The new data set on there is the IAA. That is the alternative assessment for special ed students who do not take the Prairie State. And as you can see, that's a badge of honor for our special ed teachers as to the 88.6% of those students meeting and exceeding standards. This is a compilation, and in a nutshell, this is how we did with AYP. And again, this was for students to meet and exceed at the 85% rate. Especially notable this year, white subgroup in reading and mathematics did make AYP, as well as Asian subgroup in math. Last year, it was only Asian subgroup in math, so realize that we're looking at different cohorts every year. So you'll see the gains, lots of pluses in the last column. You will note under Hispanic there are some minuses there. It's important to recognize not only are we looking at different cohorts with different groups of students, but the numbers of students in the Hispanic subgroup that took the Prairie State and might not have done as well. That might equate to about 10 students not having done as well as in previous years. So it's important to understand the whole story. The biggest piece to this is that there's 3 greens and lots of pluses. That's the way I would simplify that. Especially students with disabilities and reading, that's striking. And so a lot of work is being done by our staff in order to keep building and bringing that up. Again, our ongoing areas of focus, systems of support, that implementation, partnering with parents, that's key. The Common Core Standards integration, that's going forward, and we're also looking at how that will have an impact on how we measure student success. The principal appraisal system is the first step. That is now connected with student growth, so this will have a new importance, even more so, and that will eventually translate into the teacher appraisal system in 2016. And ultimately, it's all based upon data-driven decision-making. So we are happy to report and share with you this year's report card for the district. A lot of good data that have been presented, lots of work still to be done because of our ongoing areas of focus.
Any questions for Dr. Miner?
I had one question, I don't know, for Dr. Miner or maybe for Evan. I'd noticed that the Hispanic percentages went down for the AYP. are we making similar efforts with the Hispanic community as we are with our African-American communities?
We are, and actually we've had some Hispanic parent outreach efforts for quite some time here in the district. And what is a little bit different from the focus of what we are currently doing and what we're doing with Plan is that our Hispanic outreach has been focused around our English language learners, which for us happens to be a large population are those that speak Spanish. So the difference is that once we start looking at focusing those efforts on specifically Hispanic outreach versus the ELL portion, we'll probably see some greater numbers than what we've done in the past.
Thanks. Let's hope so.
Okay, other questions? Anything more to this report, Dr. McDonald?
There is not.
Okay. We'll move to the next item on our agenda. This would be item 6B, Superintendent Report and Board Discussion regarding Policy 6.80. Dr. McDonald?
This was discussed at the October workshop. The board indicated, based on our policy in terms of adding an item to the agenda, the board discussed and decided it wanted to discuss Policy 6.80 at this meeting. The Policy Committee has reviewed this recently, did not determine to change it. However, this is an opportunity to discuss. Now, what I would like to do before the discussion, however, because I think this certainly came up as a result of a speaker we had at North High School approximately, well, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I did ask both the principals to come tonight to be prepared to talk about how they are addressing issues like that, or they will in the future, given what occurred in last month. So, Steve, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, both of us have instituted some structures that are probably a little more intricate than we've had, perhaps. But basically at South High School, we are asking all of our department chairs to alert us to any outside speakers being brought into the school. And so the chairs are contacting every one of the administrators in the front office, because many of us will know one of those speakers or have known of them, or have our content background be represented more readily that way. So obviously Gina and I will be more directly involved, but all of us function as a team. So each one of the chairs has been alerting us to any speaker that comes in from outside the district. When we decide that something could potentially be controversial, then we send out notification to parents. We have sent direct notification to parents via the Teacher Access Center, so any teacher can email their set of parents. So for example, last week we had a Red Ribbon speaker at both campuses. The South High conversation was concerned about a point that particular group was going to make. And so in our conversations with that group, we modified their presentation for us because we were on top of what that group planned to present. We invited, at South High, we only do second and third period courses to go to that presentation for a couple of reasons, so that they can get to North High School and do the presentation there. Plus our auditorium doesn't seat enough people, so we do it period 2 and 3. We invite enough classes to fill the auditorium each period. So we see about over 800 students in the auditorium that day. Those parents, of course, got an email blast, but in addition to that, the teachers sent notification to every single parent through that system in the grade book and alerted them and gave them the option that if they were concerned about the presentation in any way, shape, or form, they needed to alert the teacher within the next 2 days so that that student could have an alternative. Now, that's much like we do for our novels or any other scientific course of instruction, where there's a unit or a section where parents decide they're going to opt out for whatever reason from a portion or from a novel. And then we design an alternative instruction for students. So those students were allowed to have some other activity. Some students went to the library. Some departments created some other instructional opportunity for them. But out of the 800 and some students, we had one parent choose to opt out. So that is 0.1% of the population. We're satisfied with that. We think that's typical of what we would normally see, and the presentation went off without a hitch. So we're pretty satisfied with the structure and with the way we handle that. So chairs are comfortable with letting us know speakers that they're, not that they're concerned about, but which speakers there are, and we banter a little bit back and forth about any questions we have, and basically we decide whether we are concerned or not. And that system is pretty comfortable for us. We don't anticipate any issues with it at all. So, and I know that's similar to what Scott's doing.
Well, Steve and I processed this together, so it's very similar to what we do at both schools. In terms of guest speakers, we're also being more purposeful about our structure and about our process. So department chairs, Pete Tice, our associate principal for curriculum instructions, our point person, he would have the first conversation with department chairs, and they're told to bring any and every outside guest speaker to process that with Pete. If Pete has any concerns, the speaker is controversial, if we're concerned that the topic that they're presenting doesn't align with our curriculum, Pete would come to me. He and I would process it. If we felt that the speaker would provide a sound educational experience for the students, but could be potentially controversial, then I would call Dr. McDonald, so he would be aware also. And so that way we have a process for both looking at the different speakers that are coming in, what they're presenting, and then also a process to make sure that everyone who needs to be aware of a potential controversial speaker knows about that person in advance. With our Red Ribbon Week assemblies, we were able to do a split period, so all of the students at North had the opportunity to see the same group that was at South. We contacted all of the parents via our email blast. All the teachers explained to the students what type of content areas or topics this group was going to present, and we gave our students the option, if they did not want to see this presentation, or if parents did not want their student to see the presentation, they could simply go into the library and sign in. Our structure, the students were not missing class because we had a modified schedule, so they just simply would go up to the library, sign in for attendance purposes, and can spend a period there reading, doing whatever they would like. And of our 2,100 students, we had one student go to the library. So we think that was also an effective process. And to my knowledge, we did not get any parent phone calls of concern or questioning. At least I didn't get any phone calls, and I wasn't aware of any of my administrative team getting a phone call. So I think the process went very smoothly.
Okay. That, I think where we're at is that we put this on the agenda this evening for board discussion. There's board policy, and there's also how the policy is implemented. Does anybody want to offer any suggested changes or comments about the policy from the board point of view? Mr. Mattoon?
I'd just like to ask a question of our principals. So moving forward, every guest speaker who is non-certificated will be brought to the attention of the associate principal. And secondly, when our building principals and our other administrators have moved on, for whatever reason, will there be a codified policy from an administrative level that will dictate exactly what has been said here?
Yes, that's currently what we're doing. And we'll continue with that until such time as we no longer need to do that, which I'm not sure we come across, or until there's a reason in terms of how we implement board policy and procedure changes. So, yeah.
Well, I guess if I could follow up on that. So how exactly is this procedure memorialized for the future? Is it written down somewhere administratively? How do we? Because I think that's kind of the crux of the question here. The comment is how.
Well, it's not a problem to write it down. We could create administrative regulation for it. I think that would probably be the most efficient way, and it would be
specific.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, and because this, as I will say, that I think what demonstrates that the system works was that there was one parent who decided to opt out. There was one child, one student who decided to go to the library, and for those two instances, this process really worked well for them. And I think that when we get into trouble is when that process isn't in place, and we get those few parents, those few students who, yeah, right, and need to have the opportunity to opt out. And hearing that there's notification to our principals now in place, and I think that was one of the real things I was hoping that we'd gain out of this discussion. I don't think that we need to do anything with our board policy with this, hearing that we're handling it at an administrative level and that it's working effectively.
Right, I would agree with that. And that was the exact point of my comment, is to make sure that it is written down, because I don't think that we need any board action at this time. And I do want to make sure, though, that we emphasize a culture of being proactive with our parents. You know, that our parents are in charge of what their children are exposed to, and at the very least be given some kind of notification. I think we owe that to them.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I do struggle a little bit with some questions, because you use the term non-certificated, meaning?
Meaning that they're not a licensed teacher with the state of Illinois.
So, but what you're saying is anyone coming in now is going to go through this review.
I think it's
And
better.
just to be clear, not every presentation is going to warrant parent notification ahead of time.
Well,
That's going to be our judgment call.
Understood.
Right.
Most won't.
And that was my point, because I would hope, while I agree that parents should be given the right to make decisions about their children, you know, I mean, what's controversial? It's a judgment call, and I would hope we would not try to take that judgment call away from our building principals.
I agree.
That would be quite the burden for our administration.
And can you imagine if we
To be
had
notifying people all the
notify
time.
parents on every single presentation? Yeah.
But I think they do have a right to know, and I think if teachers were proactive to put it on their syllabus, to warn parents ahead of time, I think we can avoid a lot. Because some people, what we as educators view as controversial or non-controversial may be, you know, deemed otherwise by parents.
Obviously, yeah, because that's what happened.
Well, if this turns into an administrative procedure, we're all pretty much content.
I have a small concern whether or not, I think it's great to have a procedure that's written down that everybody can see and everyone has the same expectation. I would not want it to have a chilling effect, that maybe a teacher would take a step back before they bring in somebody that would be extremely capable and it would be a good topic for kids to study, but might be viewed as a little bit controversial. I don't know whether I'm stating it clearly enough, but I would certainly want our teachers to still feel that they had some academic freedom.
I think the policy allows controversial
does.
subjects.
Yes, it does.
It's not the intent of the policy to
Right.
eliminate.
I was really thinking more of the procedure.
The issue is when a policy is potentially, or when curriculum or instruction or program is potentially controversial, to notify the parents.
Pretty much just making everybody aware, not having a chilling effect on
The
it.
fact of the matter is already been said. There are things that one person thinks is controversial,
Exactly.
another does not.
Exactly.
And my guess is that we will make bad calls at some point in time, not on purpose, but somebody will disagree. We're going to have to accept that. Because it isn't possible, and we have a heterogeneous community.
Yes,
That where
indeed.
people have different views on a variety of things. It's not possible to legislate everything.
Exactly.
Say, well, this is controversial and this isn't, or...
That's my concern.
To bring this full circle, though, had this procedure been in place, I think, come back to the Constitution Week presentation that kind of precipitated this discussion. I have every confidence that would have been viewed as a controversial issue, and parents would have been notified. You disagree? I see you shaking your head.
I think that's inherent in the problem to begin with.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
You know, from our seats, and I don't want to speak for you, our seats, our jobs are to make sure that our programs do a couple things. They keep kids safe and they support the Board of Education's policies and procedures. So those are the two main things we think about when there's a question to be answered or a problem to be solved. And I'm not so sure that that we would always view that particular instance as controversial. The topic was not controversial. The topic is something we cover within the curriculum by ourselves and with outside speakers in multiple ways. And so the controversy was not really about the topic. The controversy was from someone who was concerned about the background of the speaker.
Yes.
And so in that respect, that would come into play in our conversation, but I'm not so sure that it would have risen to the same level as those concerned individuals really made it. So I think we have a procedure in place to make sure that there's scrutiny and that and that we have a plan in place. But I'm not convinced that it would be as controversial as it ended up being in that instance. From my side,
I would take issue with that.
But in looking back at it, I don't think it was controversial in the classroom. I think it was a good discussion topic, and that our students probably got a lot out of it. And maybe some of it was a prejudice of the parents. And should we stop our children from discussing controversial things because of our parents' prejudice?
Absolutely not.
So,
Talking about stopping, we're talking about letting parents know about it ahead of time, so parents have to have the opportunity to say yes or no.
That parent would have stopped that student from experiencing that particular
That's their
speaker.
right.
And I think that's what, but I think that's what Mr. Bild is trying to get to, is that there is a fine line between good education and discussion, and should we let our prejudice take over? And so I think that's what he's trying to say.
I mean, I'm very comfortable with the process, and I think
it'll
that will
work.
bear out in 99% of the cases. But I do agree with Dr. McDonald that from time to time, there's going to be something that many of us decide is not controversial, that someone does register a complaint or concern about. I think that's what's going to happen from time to time, and I think that's still okay that that happens, because nothing's 100% yes.
Absolutely.
I would just add, if I could, relative to this specific speaker, I only had 2 parents of students who actually heard and saw the speaker who contacted me afterwards just with a question. So we really didn't have a controversial topic being presented, and our parents and students perceived it as that.
Agreed. But it did generate hundreds and hundreds of emails that we all received, some from folks within the district.
Very few.
Very few. Most of them were
Most
from
around the country.
Okay, well, okay, but I would argue that if, for that one parent, it makes a difference, and I don't see the harm in letting parents know ahead of time. I think it's great that we would have presentations on controversial issues. I've said this before, and that I believe that hearing other sides of things, it forces me to examine my own beliefs more intimately and reassess, and I grow that way as a person. And so, and I certainly don't want to support any sort of prejudicial issues. All I'm talking about is when we're bringing somebody in who has some sort of national stature because they've been involved in a well-publicized case, I would think that would rise to the issue of the level of being perceived as controversial, specifically in this case. And I would have been disappointed had this process been in place, and then I would have still gotten a few emails from parents in district. And so hindsight, in this case, hindsight may not be 20/20, since you're saying there's no way to know for sure whether or not you would have deemed this as being something that warranted contacting parents. But on the other hand, you may have. I guess we won't know because
You didn't.
this really didn't. And so moving forward, I am comfortable that there's a process in place that wasn't prior, and the hope would be that these sorts of things would happen even less than what they've happened. See, lots of people looking at me. So.
Somebody want to add something?
Well, I guess I just wanted to clarify, because I think Mr. Bill well stated certainly my feelings, and that is, controversial is a judgment call. And I think it would be a chilling effect to Julia's point. I think it would be a chilling effect to teachers if we knew that they had to jump through hoops every time they brought a speaker in. Mm-hmm. If we're not going to rely on our principal's discretion, then we're going to have to send home notes about every outside speaker, which I think is untenable. And frankly, if you had told me that Ms. Alquist was coming, I would have had no clue who she was. So, I just think I understand everybody's points, and I think that we should try our best to head off to give parents the option when we know, but I agree. I think there's going to be times we're just not going to.
We'll just have to deal with it then.
Deal with it
Absolutely.
But I think lastly, the focus that we should always remember is that we're dealing with 14 and 18-year-old students. They're under the age of majority, and we had a speaker, regardless of their background, who was 18, who was a peer. And I think that if there's reasons why the state licensed our teachers from the age of 21 and up, we don't have students as teachers because we're not always going to be sure what they're going to say. And as a teacher myself, every day in the classroom, I'm not always sure what my students are going to say. But I think it's a parent's prerogative and it's a parent's right to know every person that comes into our schools and speaks in our classrooms, because we always have visitors check in every single day. They're documented and accounted for, and I don't see why our parents shouldn't be made to know who's in there inculcating or discussing whatever issue it is with our students who are under the age of majority. I think that's being safe. I think that's being proactive, and as a parent, that's exactly what I would want.
I'm not sure it's realistic, though, Mr. Mattoon, to notify parents of every speaker that comes into our building the same manner that is described by the principal's presentation. I don't think that's a tenable position.
I don't think there would be too.
Well, I frankly think that's disappointing. I think we can do a better job then, especially through a syllabus. In this course, you can expect 5 speakers that will come to this particular class talking about these particular issues. If there's any questions, please contact.
You're talking about specific classes.
Absolutely.
Not notifying every parent of.
Correct.
Of a teacher who's coming to a social studies class.
Now, let me jump in for a minute with my observation on this, is that there are, either we notify them of every speaker, or we create our own definition of controversial, good luck, or we accept that from time to time judgment calls are going to be different than what we might like. I would observe that Mr. Kasich, Mr. Bill, and Dr. McDonald have spent a large amount of time on this. And to avoid these types of things is in their interest. It's definitely in their interest. So we have to accept that once in a while they're going to get it wrong. And wrong in the sense that maybe some of us don't agree with it. But do they get most? I mean, are we looking for zero tolerance on controversy? If there's ever one parent says, oh, I should have been notified, that's enough to change the policy. Or are they usually right about what's controversial? And we can look at the track record of how many parents protest. If they're wrong again and again and again, well, we got a problem. If they're wrong once every couple of years, well, you missed that one, and you paid the price of having to spend 45 hours dealing with it. So that's the check and balance that I see. That we all aren't going to. The 7 of us won't agree whether, and to relitigate whether Jessica Alquist should have come or not is pointless because the 7 of us won't agree.
That's right.
Okay. So either it's zero tolerance of controversy, or we accept they're going to get some wrong, and their check and balance is that we spend all our time doing this. And otherwise, I propose that you write a definition of controversial. Okay.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about this, and correct me if I am, but I think that some of the larger issue was, though, and I think that if we're going to put in an administrative regulation now, and it is going to go to the principals then to review, we're having a little bit larger pool to review who's coming into the schools. Because I think my problem personally with it was not the speaker or was I think it was the fact that we should be giving our teachers freedom and to dive into controversial issues and teach different things. But I would have felt better about it had my principals known the speaker that was coming in there, and I felt that there was a larger pool of looking into, who was actually coming in. Maybe you would have made the same call, maybe not, but I think it's a good administrative regulation as to increase the pool of people looking at who's actually coming in and speaking at the schools.
I agree with that. I agree with that, because you two gentlemen now have a Harry Truman sign on your desk on these.
Because otherwise there could be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but now there's a clearly identified point of responsibility. And for us to define controversial is a thankless, impossible task. But if we see a track record of angry parents, then we know who to go to. Anybody else want to add anything? Because I support the administrative regulation concept, having clear accountability for the speakers.
Well.
Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. 6C, Freedom of Information Request.
District received 2 Freedom of Information requests during the past month. Both were denied. The first was denied because it was our opinion the person asking for the information did not have the right to have it. The second one was denied because we frankly don't keep that information that was requested. So both were denied.
Thank you. Okay, item 7, consent agenda. The chair invites a motion to pass the consent agenda, items 7A through F, as presented.
So moved.
Member Pavasich moves.
Second.
Member Kupka seconds. Call the vote, please.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Julie Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, the motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Item 8. Item 8A, approval of a Title I plan. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. The District 99 accepts Title I funding from the federal government at a tune of about $340,000 at this time a year, and we are spending it well, we believe. What we're going to ask the board to approve tonight is a spending plan, not for the current school year, but for the 2013-14 and 2014-15 school years. I'm going to ask Dr. Miner to make this presentation, but I think the board will be aware when you hear it that we're tying our Title I plan as well as our district improvement plan as closely into our strategic plan and annual goals as possible, as we are very concerned about redundancy and creating additional work beyond what our core mission is. So Dr. Miner, would you please brief the board?
As the memo states, this is in anticipation of being able to use funds going forward. In order to be able to spend the funds appropriately, you have to have a plan in place. Our current plan and our spending, it's up at the end of October. So this has to come before the board so that you have a sense. Much of what we have included is a continuation and a repeat of what we've been doing in the last 2 years, because frankly, it's been having a positive effect. Focusing on the reading pieces, focus on the supplemental assistance for before school and after school programs, focusing on the math pieces. Those are all things that will continue to have an impact, not only as it has in the past, but also going forward with regard to some of the new things on the horizon. Those new pieces are what I focused on for the purposes of the memo. You'll hear the Common Core State Standards framework again noted, because going forward we have to attend to that. Secondly, I referenced there's a new school improvement and district improvement system called Rising Star, that all of the data needs to be entered in an ongoing fashion. I'll be talking to you a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but that is also something that needs to be included in the Title I plan as a new way of doing things. The other piece we included was the AVID system of support. That stands for Achievement via Individual Determination. That's a program I've referenced previously related to helping students who are in the middle access the most rigorous kinds of curriculum, namely honors and AP courses. Again, there's the clear connection with several of our goals for this district strategic plan. And finally, the other piece included in the Title I plan was an AP summer bridge. This again links with that honors and AP, getting students who typically might not have the opportunity to it. We've already had some of our teachers at each the buildings and multidisciplinary teams work at a plan for what that might look like. That will come to the board in terms of a summer course offering that we want to make sure our students have that additional support before they jump into their first AP experience. So again, there should be some clear connections with our strategic plan that you've heard about, as well as some of the things that are in the horizon for education, and all those are referenced within the Title I plan.
Any questions for Dr. Minor or anybody else? If there's no more informational questions, the chair would invite a motion to approve the Title I plan, improvement plan as presented.
So moved.
And Member Pevasich moves.
Second.
Member Kupka seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the chair asks that we call the vote.
Excuse me, Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, the motion passes and the plan has been approved. Item 8B, approval of district improvement plan. Dr. McDonald?
This is clearly related to the Title I plan. District 99 receives Title I funding. District 99 did not make adequate yearly progress. In fact, I believe 11 high schools out of the 800 in the state of Illinois made adequate yearly progress, so we are not alone. However, our obligation, having not met adequate yearly progress 2 years in a row as a district, is to develop and ask the board to approve a district improvement plan. As stated previously, we focused very much in the development of this plan on our strategic plan, so that what we are doing is clearly aligned across these different obligations of school improvement and accountability. So Dr. Minor, would you make a brief presentation on the district improvement plan?
Certainly. As the memo outlines, we do have a district improvement plan, but this year it's taken a different shape because it's now gone electronic. And it also is different in that it parallels the continuous improvement business model. I've given you some attachments to the memo so you could see how that ongoing logging of what we're doing in terms of activities that fit within our predetermined indicators for our district improvement plan, that has to take place over the course of the year. The days of submitting a DIP, putting it in a binder, and putting it up on the shelf are long gone. And that's a good thing, because continuous improvement needs to be monitored. That which is monitored is that which is valued. So the state has framed out some key predetermined areas. In the past, you were probably hearing about reading and mathematics as part of the DIP. This year, it's slightly different. The predetermined areas reference district vision and direction, district and school improvement, district allocation of resources for school improvement, district support for school improvement and student achievement, and teacher and leader effectiveness and supports. Much broader, more systemic approaches. From that, we had sat down, Dr. McDonald and I looked through a series of predetermined categories that were indicators that the state had set up, and then in alignment with what we currently are doing with our strategic plan, framed up 3 key objectives for the focus for the upcoming year. These relate to rigor, which ties in with our AP and honors. They relate to the collection and reporting of data analysis systems. That relates to our state reporting and our data gathering to show how well our students are doing. And the third is related to our curriculum guide to align with state and other standards. That's Common Core once again. So these will be our 3 strategic focal points going forward. Toward the end of the year, we'll easily be able to show you metrics as well as a list of activities that we've accomplished to advance our district strategic plan. And then the state will also have a sense as to how well we're doing on these pieces. And by the way, these can be multi-year goals, just like our district strategic plan.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Miner? No. Once again, I would like to say that I'm very pleased that in both this and the previous one, there's a very conscious effort to integrate these plans with the strategic plan. So really everything fits into as part of one giant, I shouldn't say giant, one common comprehensive plan. You know, complying with the mandates that are imposed on us from Springfield and Washington, while still maintaining our own strategic direction. I think that's a very good way for us to go. Unless somebody has further questions, the chair will invite a motion to approve the district improvement plan.
So moved.
Member Beckman moves.
Second.
Member Pevizur seconds. Any discussion? Okay, call that vote, please.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye, the motion passes. The district improvement plan has been approved. Item 8C now is a resolution authorizing the acquisition by eminent domain of certain property. Dr. McDonald, is there any presentation we wish to make before we go to the motion, or Mr. Staley?
As we talked about in closed session, there's this property is appropriate for our multi-needs program, and let me start there. We've had our multi-needs program has not been able to continue its lease with Westmont Schools, where it had been for 5 years. We've had to split the program apart and put it into our buildings this year. These multi-needs program is students that are post-high school age and up to age 22, which we are legally required to provide services for, and in terms of teaching them life skills. We don't think it's the best interest of the students to have them housed in our buildings with 9 through 12 grade students. And so we feel it's in the best interest of the program to find and secure a permanent location as close to our campuses as possible to run this program. And we looked over 30 properties and have found one to really stand out as being most appropriate. We've been negotiating to some extent with the owners. It's a property that's been for sale for more than 3 years. It's been on the market. It's still currently on the market, but we've not been able to come to terms with the value of that property. And so we feel that, unfortunately, we feel probably the most appropriate thing to do for the program is to go through the process of eminent domain and let a jury decide on the market value, because really that's the only sticking point right now is the value of that property, and we think it's the right interest of our district and in the students that we pay a fair price for the property and not overpay for our taxpayers. So there's a few issues here. Obviously, this is a very tough issue to recommend, but we've studied it very hard for quite some time, and we believe this is the right move at this time to ask you to give us authority to file for eminent domain on this particular property.
And in that regard, I note that a specific formal legal resolution has been prepared, and all board members have been given a copy of that. The chair would invite a motion to approve the written resolution as presented to us.
So moved.
Member Davenport moves. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Member Kupka seconds. Do we wish any discussion on the motion before we vote? Anybody?
I just feel it's the most prudent thing to do in the interests of the district.
And I will also state for the record that the administration has presented to us numerous reasons why this one particular property is particularly well suited for our needs.
I think they've done their due diligence.
Yeah, it's particularly well suited for our needs. The property is not fully rented and has been on the market for a long time. So, and there'll be other reasons that'll be developed. With that, any further discussion? Call the vote.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Nay.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye. The motion passes. The resolution has been approved. The next item on our agenda, 9A, Policy Committee Report, second reading. These are the items that came before us last time for first reading. We have deferred until next month the policy about intra-district transfer between north and south. With that, these others, I believe, we're pretty much agreement with. I've heard no feedback that I can recall from anybody on any of these. Anybody have any? We'll take sort of an omnibus fashion. If anybody is concerned with any of these, please speak up. Otherwise, I might invite a motion to approve the adoption of the various second reading policies found in paragraph 9A, if that's a permissible route to follow, or one by one.
So I think we can approve them all at one time. I mean, as long
As long
as
as they're
they're,
named in
as long
the-
as they're named within the.
Does anybody want to pull one out for specific discussion?
Them all in the minutes.
Does anyone want to pull anyone out for specific discussion?
These were all fairly routine
Absolutely.
language changes.
ISB standard.
Okay, so then, but I will read them for the record. It's adopt policy 3.40, 3.51, 3.52, 3.54, 3.60, 3.62, 3.63, 3.64, 3.65, 6.235, 6.70, 7.38, 7.190, 7.200, 7.210, 7.280, and 7.384, all is more fully set forth in the agenda with copies of the actual language attached thereto. With that, the chair invites a motion to approve all of those motions.
President White?
Yeah.
I think you misspoke.
I think you misspoke on the last one. It's
7.3.
7.34.
7.340, well, I'm glad
thought
people
I
are paying
also-
attention.
There-
I thought I
think
also
there was
heard you
one other
mention
one.
6.70, and I don't believe that was on the list.
I believe you meant 7.50.
7 I was looking at the 6 above, 7.50. Okay. Fortunately, the written record will control.
Yes.
So moved.
Member Kupka moves. I guess on Policy Committee, I will second. Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? Call the vote.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. These various policies, including the ones I misspoke on, have been approved. Item 10, new business. 10A, Policy Committee report on the first reading. Let me call it these. Ms. Kupka, you want to talk to us briefly about these 5 policies?
These are 5 policies. All of them encompass recommendations from IASB. I believe 2 policies, or 3 policies are actually changes and 2 are new. But again, they're pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, any questions about any of these at this time?
I have one.
Yes.
On 6.311, exemption for physical education, just curious, in the language in the policy, why does it say for just juniors and seniors for some of the, if you're involved in other physical activities, why wouldn't it just be seniors, or why isn't it freshmen, sophomore, junior, senior? I'm just curious, regarding interscholastic sports. I just was curious the rationale behind why it's just juniors and seniors. Does anybody know?
Well, they
I
varsity
believe
sports.
that, although we did not discuss this exact element, because I don't think that part of the
That didn't
policy has
change.
changed.
No.
But I believe that's relative to the fact that younger students don't have the ability to get a waiver from physical education. They're not typically in varsity athletics. I believe the law requires them to attend physical education.
Unless they're in varsity athletics. So what if,
They are in varsity athletics.
It might be
I
a
believe.
school code issue.
That's it, I think
I
it
believe
is.
that's a school code issue, but
We can
that's not
investigate.
something we discussed during the deliberations, but
okay,
easier enough to find out.
all right, sorry for not asking ahead of time. I intended to do that. So.
That's what this is for, so yeah. Any other questions about any of these others? As always, contact myself, Dr. McDonald, or Ms. Kupka with any questions or concerns about any of these policies before they come back for second reading. And there is no action being taken tonight on these. 10B, we are going to have some IASB resolutions and the constitutional amendments to be discussed, I believe, next month. Have a report on that?
Right. You know, at the convention every year, I'm the delegate, so I will vote on the resolutions that were put forth by the IASB. So, and I know that we all received this packet last time. Terry was nice enough to give this one to me because I left mine on my desk. But has anybody have any questions about any of the resolutions that have been placed forward? Has anybody had a chance to look them over?
No.
That's okay.
I haven't.
I did look them over. They're fairly rich, and I don't see anything that stands out to me that we wouldn't, as a body, approve, but I certainly wouldn't speak for all of us until that time comes to vote. So I would just ask that it, just look through them, and if something does jump out at you to bring it up at maybe our next meeting right before we go, and we can talk about it, so I can get some feedback as to how you would like me to vote. Okay?
Okay, any further questions or comments on that?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, we move to item 11, second reception of visitors. Has anybody decided they wish to address the board on any matter for up to 3 minutes? It pertains to District 99, I should say. Okay, I don't see any response to that. We can move on to item 12, communication and announcements. Len report?
Yes, Len had their first meeting in September. It was a discussion with our elected officials, briefing people on various issues of Len, which was detailed succinctly by Dr. McDonald in his last memo to the board. I'd refer you to that summary, and next meeting will be October 19th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? 12B would be SACID.
The SACID board met in late September, and I guess the most significant issue was that we had a budget presentation, and we are, at least we're hoping that we will remain in the black. We have about $1.5 million balance, and including all of our current tuitions, so that's good. I think there have been some other grants that have come in that we had hoped would come in. And for Mark's benefit, we're moving from modified accrual to a full accrual basis for our finances. So that's, I think, will make it easier for all of us to understand it. And I think that's kind of the most important, except to tell you that, of course, the SACID programs are going along, and they seem to be growing every year.
Okay, thank you. Item 12C would be report regarding the foundation.
Well, we had our at homecoming events, and we raised over $11,000 for the foundation, and that was a good thing. I think we're going to, recap next meeting and figure out what we want to do for next year, and that's about it. It would be nice to have more board participation in our foundation events. People ask. Yes, they were. People ask for you, so it would have been nice for more board members to be there.
Okay, any further communications and announcements before we go to our upcoming meetings?
I would like to, I know that Dr. McDonald had put this out on the mark, and it's been out, but I would like to congratulate Mr. Bild again on his I'm sorry, I couldn't get off of work to be there, but I'm sure that many of your fans and supporters were, so, but congratulations from all of us to you.
For the record, Mrs. Boyle, what was that award again?
It was Woodridge, and I believe it was Employee of the Year.
Very cool.
Okay, anybody else have anything to announce? Okay, our upcoming board meetings are on November 5th. We'll have a special workshop meeting. That'll be at 7 p.m. at South High School.
We're moving that meeting because the following day is an election, and this is a polling place, and they like to set that up the night before. So while it's not always convenient for us, we have tried to honor their interest in getting that set up so they can have a smooth election the following day. So that will be at South High School, and I believe we're going to the orchestra room.
Oh, okay.
I'd also note that on November 12th is the first of our new concept board recognition open house, and the first hour will be, probably won't take us the first hour, But the first hour is devoted to the recognition program. We're combining two for the fall, because those typically are lighter than the spring ones. And then we will have an open house for an hour following that, and as you know, we're working on the format for that. I'd also, going back to the November 5th meeting, the board is aware that a committee in the district's been working on the workday schedule as a joint group with the Teachers Association. We've been meeting almost weekly since the beginning of school. We will have a report to the board at that point. We're working on that at this time. So that will be on the agenda for November 5th.
Okay, that covers the 5th and the 12th, and then on the 19th, 3 weeks in a row, we'll have our regular business meeting. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add before I invite a motion to adjourn? Chair invites a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Member Beckman moves.
Second?
Member Devereux seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.